Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to our workshop. My name is Libani Aliaga. I am one of the co-authors of the Food and Pandemic Report. And today we will emphasize on sharing the learned lessons we have obtained while writing, presenting, and distributing the Food and Pandemic Report. This workshop is presented by two organizations, Purpose and Provech. From the Provech side, we have Lara, who is the head of the strategic communication team from Provech. And you also have me. I work for the Research and Science department from Provech. Before I start talking about the findings and challenges we found, I would like to give you a short introduction of what Provech does. Provech International is a global food awareness organization with the mission to reduce the global consumption of animal products by 50% by the year 2040. Provech works with companies, governments, public institutions, medical professionals, and the public to help the world transition to a society and economy less reliant on animal agriculture. The Food and Pandemic Report has two parts. The first part has been already published in July and explains how animal-based food systems and pandemics are related. The second part of the report will be launched next year, and it will discuss possible prevention and risk mitigation strategies regarding food systems and pandemics. Until now, many questions remain unanswered, like, for example, where did the virus originate? Which animals were exactly involved in this process, which are the best containment strategies, for example. But something that is right now clear is that there is a fundamental connection between pandemics and our outdated animal-based food system. It's also clear that the health, social, and economical impact of pandemics can be very massive and also last. And it's clear the action is now required to minimize the risk of future occurrences. Food systems change so far is being largely neglected as a solution to address the root cause of pandemics. The Food and Pandemic Report started with a very small team. Actually, one of our colleagues, the international director of Provech, Jens Suder, wanted to write a position paper regarding this topic. It turned out to be a much greater project, not just 2 or 3 pages, but more than 40 pages, with more than 400 references. We were a very small team of just 5 people at the core and worked tirelessly from April to July and pulled off the report. Therefore, as part of the core team, I would like to talk about the challenges and findings of writing the report and also the findings and challenges when we were presenting the results of the report. Last week, I was talking with Daniel Brown, one of the main contributors of the Food and Pandemic Report. He is the head of the Research and Science department. He said this project evolved as a pandemic. And I think he's right. This project evolved all of a sudden. We started having more information, more data, more questions. And we had a very flexible outline with this project, which was very convenient because we could always add new information to the report. But this doesn't help to create a realistic time frame. This is why it was very important that we had a project manager that gave us deadlines. One thing that was really crucial also with writing this report is the fact that we had a very diverse team, just not in Provech in general, but also in our report team. We had 3 types of diversity that helped writing the report a lot. We had gender diversity, we were more women contributing to this report. We had also very cognitive diversity. We were people with more in the scientific end of the spectrum, but we also had people from the public relationship side. Having these 2 teams help a lot to write an easy to follow document, but still evidence-based. We also have cultural diversity in our team with people from different countries. And this actually helped a lot when giving the report a more global perspective. If you read the report, you will find topics and data that talk about pandemics and how it affects not just high-income countries, but also low and middle-income countries. To maximize the outreach, we have also translated the report to other 2 languages, Spanish and Polish. Now, regarding learned lessons when presenting the report, something I learned regarding presenting the findings of the report or any other report is to tailor the content to the audience. There is no need to suffocate the audience with data. This topic is already complex, and therefore, in some cases, less is more. In this report, we use a lot of data regarding case fatality rates. We also talk a lot about different zoonotic diseases or other types of diseases. This information can be very daunting, and being positive regarding these topics can be a challenge. However, it is important that we also focus on solutions, show the benefits for all target groups, which also should show examples of projects and advances that are being made regarding transforming food systems, and also see the pandemic as a unique opportunity to reset our status quo. With that, I leave you to Lara, who's going to talk more about learned lessons while doing the outreach of the report.
Yeah, thank you, Limbania. Great. Yeah, so when the team worked very, very hard on creating the report, the communication team set up a distribution plan to distribute a report to relevant target audiences, because obviously, you know, creating a report is one thing, but the actual impact is when the right people read the report and can implement the findings. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. One of the findings was that what we really noticed is that reaching out to new contacts just on a one-by-one personal basis was the most effective way in getting it read by high influential, for example, policy people. This was very time consuming and we definitely underestimated it. But it was worth the investment. For example, we reached out to multiple European Parliament members, to the European Commission, European Council bodies, and from all of these institutes, we gained personal contacts and also questions and opportunities to advise on the topic. But also, for example, virologists in Belgium used the report to address the topic to the national government, and in Poland an opportunity arose by sending it to the Polish Academy of Sciences, and all of this was achieved kind of by established relationships, but more new opportunities were found by just reaching out to people we've never been in contact with before. And that was very empowering, I think, also for all of us to know that we don't have to hesitate in reaching out. People are actually really happy to receive materials that are scientifically based and well written. Can you go to the next slide? What also really helped in this was that we added in the report endorsements from Peter Singer from King's College and Dr. Musonda Mumba that really added credibility to the report. Also, they shared it, but the main benefit was that when we spoke to people who could possibly use the report, we found that the introduction was maybe one of the most important pages, because when they opened the report, they saw names they recognized. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. And we started actually before reaching out with a press release, as we usually do with the PR strategy. We target B2C and B2B media in general, so consumer and business media. And what we found was that, and it also relates to what Limbania said in the beginning, this is such a complex topic that it was mainly picked up by B2B media, so in-depth media. And we struggled with shaping a narrative around it in consumer media. I don't think it's, I mean, it was a struggle we also anticipated because it is such a complex topic, and we're still working on it. Actually, we're still trying to find opportunities to find new messages, new ways of introducing the report in B2C media. Can you go to the next slide? Also, we wanted to thank everyone because not only through 50 by 40, but also through other networks, a lot of NGO and organizations helped out on distributing the reports internally or publicly. And that definitely helped to get the reports to the right people. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, challenges on launching and also following up was that when we started to create a report, we were not aware of other organizations creating similar reports, even though we checked in our network. But obviously, due to COVID, a lot of organizations had to reshape what they were doing. So at the moment that when the Food and Pandemics report came out, multiple reports came out, similar ones, often with a different angle, but quite similar. So we had to push the report with multiple press releases. We didn't think it was actually a problem that there were multiple reports because you can't really have enough of them because this message is so underrepresented. But in media, it was a problem. Once a journalist writes about it, they usually don't feel like writing about it again. Also, it's a time-sensitive topic, so there's a constant update of data on the topic, which we obviously couldn't add to the report once it was out. So we covered this with an updated website page where we continuously publish blogs. You can go to the next slide, thank you. Also, something we've learned was that we need to better assess target audiences up front. So for example, when we made a decision, okay, we want to have a Spanish report, and actually we should have taken more time to rewrite the Spanish version more towards Latin American audiences. And on a payment level, just it has been proven to be effective to advertise the work that we do, but it didn't work on this report. So all the paid advertisement to get this report read, or to get it in the right media, didn't really work out. The successes were accomplished through personal reach out. I think that's the last slide, or is there another one? No, that's it. Thank you. So I think 4Pause is gonna follow up. Nina or Lynn?
Hi, I'm Linda. I'm working at 4Pause, and yeah, I think I'm gonna hand over to Nina now because she starts with the presentation. Nina?
Sorry, I was on mute. So let's see if I can share the right screen. I'll just share my entire screen and then go to presentation mode. So, hello everyone. It's good to speak to you today about this very important topic. My colleague Linda and myself work for 4Pause International, and we've been working on the topic of pandemic and pandemic response. So we'd like to share what we've compiled so far, what we've learned. So our colleagues from ProVeg have issued this very important report, and in it they identified that using animals as food is the most risky human behavior in relation to pandemics, and one of the most risky behaviors in relation to long-term survival of human society. And while this pandemic, this recent one, has taken over our lives for many months now, it's not the first and it won't be the last. And all these zoonotic diseases, they are linked to how humans treat animals. Human behavior is the main driver of zoonotic diseases. And it is established. We know that. We know that connection. But when we look at what people see, when we look at what mainstream media write about, we rarely see a link to animals and our food systems. Understandably, people are concerned about lockdowns, about the vaccine, about how their governments are performing, how this is affecting their lives. And every once in a while, we get a bit of news about fur farms where COVID is mutating, making the vaccine less effective, or slaughterhouses becoming a hotspot for the spread of COVID. So, yes, so when we look at how students, let's say, see the pandemic and pandemic response, they care about completely different things and they have in mind, understandably, completely different things than what we do have in mind. The word cloud on the right is based on the responses that you have given. So, of course, lockdown is also present in our lives, but we have also other words: zoonosis, factory farming, animal welfare, food insecurity. We are in a different cloud. So how humans treat animals is not part of the public frame of the pandemic story. And of course, we understand why it's not, but if it isn't, the important question to ask here is, will it inform pandemic response? What we think will inform pandemic response to some extent is the One Health concept. It's about the interconnectedness between animal health, human health, and environmental health. But the future can still look like this. We could still have a future where farming is in large areas that are closed, biosecure, they have better hygiene, isolated from people and the environment. People will be healthy, maybe the environment will be, but these animals will never see the sun. So how do we ensure that the right response is taken, the right steps are taken? How do we make the response about this, about a one welfare concept, where animal welfare is also part of the solution and where a predominantly plant-based diet is part of the solution? We have made the connection in this round, in this summit, and we have real solutions. So what remains is that these solutions become part of the pandemic response. And to do that, we need to win the story war. We need to communicate beyond our echo chamber, beyond our cloud, together with allies. We need to tell the solution story in a compelling way. We need to talk about what the future should be like, in one voice as often as possible, in as many channels as possible. Our toolkit is an obvious one. It's about our collective campaigns and activities. It's about coordinating and supporting each other beyond our silos, about communicating the necessary asks to the right targets in our different ways. And it's about unrelenting perseverance. It's also about changing the narrative, entering the narrative, communicating the framing and the solution together as a movement and with our allies. And when we're lobbying, it's about speaking in one voice within the movement, because our decision makers need to hear the same thing over and over to realize that that is the way and the only way forward.
Yeah, so we started an initiative. It doesn't have a real name. We call it Pandemics and Animal Welfare Group. And it is a group that coordinates and supports each other to make sure that we speak with one voice as an animal welfare movement. We develop a joint strategy to ensure the highest impact possible, and we exchange on our activities that are related to emerging diseases and animal welfare. We want to create and share tools that every organization and participant in this group can use. So what happened so far? We initiated this core group in July this year, and we had some first co-creation workshops. It is important for us that everyone is a part of this and that there is a joint decision-making process. We have this core group, but we also have working groups that are open for every organization, and every organization can lead a working group or join a working group. What is planned for next year? We want to develop this a bit further and also plan some joint global actions, for example, a joint petition with core demands. We want to coordinate the lobbying efforts ahead of key international moments. Nina will tell you a bit more about that later. And then, of course, we want to have additional working groups on key issues based on the interest of the group and also the decision-making of the group. So there, at the moment, we see lots of interest for the topic of live animal transport that needs to be coordinated on global level, but also for the cage keeping of laying hens, where there are lots of developments and that can be used to push really something for the improvement of the husbandry system of laying hens. And of course, the trade and consumption of wild animals, because at the moment there's lots of awareness about for this topic. And of course, the increase in plant-based proteins. Next, yeah. Oh, Nina, I think you're muted.
Yes, thank you. So when we were thinking about the strategy together with the other organizations, we identified a set of necessary asks. One of them is, of course, welfare and animal welfare being part of international and national strategies to prevent future pandemics. Ending factory farming, and within that, of course, the plant-based diet, which is tied to reducing the number of animals farmed, improving keeping standards of farm animals, and ending funding for factory farming. There was also interest in tackling topics related to wild animals, and here the ask would be to end commercial farming and trade in wild animals, so they're no longer bred or sold, consumed, or used in traditional medicines, and the closure of fur farms. And one ask, which is mainly a four-paws ask, is the ban on dog and cat meat trade. The possible approach, so Linda talked about the different topics and influencing key moments. What we're working on is we're identifying the international institutions and the international fora where the decisions are taken that we need to influence. And with the group of organizations, we're going to select the focus depending on where we have the highest impact and communicate the corresponding topics. So if it's about the World Food Summit, the call to action would be, or our demand would be, a future that is predominantly plant-based and ending factory farming to end pandemics, etc. And we would then coordinate with the other organizations on lobbying. We would work together with allies like virologists, experts, economists, and set up a campaigning mobilization set of peaks together.
So yeah, there are lots of lessons learned. We have summarized a few of them for you. So the first one is about this co-creation processes and about the joint decision-making, sorry. So it is very good for the sense of ownership because we develop this together, and that's what we want and what we need. But at the same time, sometimes there are some difficulties because you need to stay open, you need to be attentive to join and to be able to make a decision. Then we try to be a very unbureaucratic corporation. So it is very loose and you can participate or not. It is your choice. And this is what makes us very fast and agile. At the same time, there is less sense of commitment and sometimes low response rates. We want to be a global group of organizations, and this is necessary to also have a cultural sensitivity. So we include organizations from all over the world. That sometimes leads to difficulties with the different time zones, of course, and also the groups have different expectations sometimes. Setting the focus, yeah. The animal welfare movement is very heterogeneous, and there are lots of different targets and groups and different goals, and sometimes it is difficult to bring it together and to focus on one thing. We learned that all the organizations are very impact-oriented, so they all are very willing to cooperate in order to achieve a higher impact for the animals. All of them want to share their knowledge and their contacts, and we thought it is very positive, and it is great to see that in this movement. Ownership. So we want to define and design concrete work packages or work areas of responsibility to avoid overlaps and duplications, to avoid double work, because there are also other groups that work, of course, on international level. We want to use the synergies, so we benefit from a larger network and build on each other's strengths. And we want to speak with one loud voice to amplify the message. Be positive and solution-oriented. Yeah, the pandemic has overwhelmed everyone's lives, so we try to stay positive and solution-oriented. Oh, Nina, I think you are muted again.
Okay, I'm not sure how I did that, but thank you. So to sum up, we have made the connection within this summit and among the attendees by ProVeg and all of the other organizations that are tackling the topic of the pandemic. For us, it's about one welfare and a plant-based future. Of course, for the world, for the public, it's about a lot of other things, but the link between how humans treat animals is the reason for all of these problems. So we need to make it about this solution. We need to make it about one welfare and a plant-based future. And we can make a difference. We need to coordinate and build on each other's strengths. And our messaging needs to enter the mainstream. So let's get to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these incredible, important findings on the connection of food and pandemics. I truly think that never has there been a more pressing time to discuss these topics and share our vision for a better food system. One last thing before moving on to the participants' questions that you can already see on the shared screen here. And excuse me if I didn't capture this when you mentioned it before, but if I understand correctly, your report is available to all those interested. Right? So basically everyone can download it, go to the website and have their own peek into it. Okay, great. I see some nodding hands. So yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the first question from Theo. I'm going to look at the above screen here to read it out loud. What were the main findings of differences between target audiences, for instance, when you talk about Latin American audiences? Anyone that wants to take this question, just feel free to unmute and answer.
Maybe Limbani and me can answer it together. So from a communication perspective, when we set out to write the report, we kept the target audience quite general, and we were mainly thinking about policymakers. But when you, for example, contact Polish national governments, then ideally the content is more tailored towards Polish specific policy items or Polish specific problems at that point in time. And by keeping it very general, we wanted to serve everyone. And now looking back, it would have probably more wise to keep it, to make it a bit less general and more specific. So for specific countries. I don't know, Limbani, if you want to add something to that.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty much as you said. And the thing is that, for example, in the case of Latin America, and also in the case of the pandemic, we need to update. We need to keep updating information, like case fatality rates are changing every day for every region, for every country. So of course, if we want to make a press release, it has to be updated and tailored to the region. So that's of course one challenge and something we had to focus on.
Lara, on this maybe, I'd be interested in what you think how your work would have changed if you would have wanted to, create it maybe even in different languages or throughout the process, targeting many audiences. How would your process have changed then?
Well, I guess it would have been more a longer process, to be honest, because it would actually mean creating more tailored reports towards specific countries. But in hindsight, it might have been worth the effort, because long run, we're looking at impact, right? So in the end, we want the people who read it to be able to use it in the best way. So adding more time analyzing target audiences up front is worth the investment.
That's good to know for anybody looking to create a report in the future, maybe, right? All right, we have a next question from LG here. Which is, how can we ensure that the report's message, making the connection between food and pandemics, stays in the international media landscape?
I don't know when to answer it. I think it's a very good question. So one we did, at least we don't have the answer to. We're trying as much as we can. For example, we're now sending out on a 2-weekly basis press releases every time with a different angle to keep it in the media. But yeah, it's no guarantee it's being picked up, and it's a very complex topic. I don't know if Forpause has anything to say about that.
Yes, thank you, Lara. When I think about it, this is exactly our biggest challenge, that we know the solutions, we know what needs to happen, but it's not going into the mainstream. And I guess one of the things that we can do is we can commit to echoing each other's message. We need to multiply it ourselves, and we need to figure out new ways of packaging it. So maybe whenever there's a sort of scandal, a slaughterhouse closing, because it's become a hotspot and is spreading the virus, that we use all of these new situations that will keep developing. We know they will keep developing. We know that fur farm mutations have been an issue since the summer. So I guess it's about all of us as a movement paying attention to what's happening and repeating that message and referencing each other. I know within the movement we have a bit of a sense of we need to show our brand as organizations, but in this kind of situation we can't think about that. We have to think about putting this message across using all of the available hooks and amplifying each other's messages.
Such an important statement, Nina. All right, moving on to Robert's question, which is, biosecurity is often portrayed as a solution to prevent zoonotic diseases. How do you address that? Maybe Linda or Lambania wanna jump in on that.
Can I start now? Well, yeah, we have seen that in animal farming, there was the need to reduce the amount of microorganisms in animal, bacteria, virus, and people have started taking different measurements as biosecurity, and one of them was the use of antibiotics. And this is something we talk a lot in our report. It is the problem with the use of antibiotics and the creation of antimicrobial resistance. We talk about the great impact that it has. For example, that the 75% of antibiotics that are produced in the whole world, or even more than 75%, are being used not in humans, but in farm animals. So you can have an idea of how much we are really using for farm animals, and how biosecurity is actually backfiring.
Linda, is there anything you want to add, or anyone else from the group? No. All right, then I suggest we move on to the next question from Craig Grant. He is saying, you mentioned that your report was not translated into Asian languages. Do you know if the others were, for example, the UNEP or WWF ones? Do you regard Asian countries as good audience, with the region being the largest producer/consumer?
I guess this is in regards to the ProVeg report, right? I'm not sure if UNEP or WWF ones were translated into Asian languages, to be honest. I do think they should. And ideally, the ProVeg report also should be translated into Asian languages. We made the decision to, at this point in time, to not do that because we were thinking from a distribution perspective, where do we have the people on the ground that can also actually get the report somewhere? We do have a ProVeg China office, but that's a rather small office. So maybe in 2021, they will receive the report also in Chinese. And I think that, do you regard Asian countries as a good audience? Yes. So an absolute yes. And I think also absolutely underinvested in at this point in time.
Right, if there are no further comments on this, let's move on to a next question from Arthur, who's asking, who are ideal messengers of the connection between livestock production and pandemics? Maybe Nina, Linda, anyone really?
I can begin, and maybe Limbania or Lara, if you want to add. So from our experience, it's virologists and pathologists, veterinarians, people who are the authoritative voices of such matters. It's not necessarily us as, for example, animal welfare organizations. We always reference those kinds of authors for such messages.
Yeah, I'm assuming ideal messengers as in to get the message across. Like, this is how I'm interpreting it. So yes, then definitely what Nina says, authoritative people. Yeah, if it just comes from us, it's not being seen as credible. So it's very important to loop the right people in. I don't think we are yet have a clear answer on this, because we have, for example, spoken to quite a lot of politicians, and we've seen that that they also kind of fail at getting that message across. So, or that they find it difficult to get it across. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're not the ideal messenger. I think it's just a very difficult message to get across. So we need to get as many people as possible in different areas, virologists, politicians, policymakers, but also food industry professionals, for example, higher up, because they also have an authoritative voice, and especially also when it comes to lobbying. So yeah, as many people as possible in the right places.
Yeah, so true. And I mean, I guess this comes down to all the work we're doing. We're working so hard on creating this important content, and then it really comes down to, us spreading it in a most, I want to say effective way, but just best way, and so that many people can see it, or as many as possible. Yes. Okay, so last two questions, I would say, before moving on. We have Theo asking, how do you differentiate between the global economic system and local indigenous systems when lobbying against consumption of wild animals?
I can also respond to that one. Thank you, Theo. This is an important question. We're only focusing on the commercial breeding, trade, consumption of wild animals. So we understand with local indigenous systems, it's a completely different situation, and it's not the real cause of the problem.
Thank you, Nina. Okay, let's move on to our last question, which is a really big one, basically, just smashing right into this whole topic. How do we make people acknowledge the connection finally? So a one sentence answer, I would say.
Yeah, indeed, it is a big question, and it is why we're doing our work. The best way to make that connection is also partly as we were trying to imply in our presentation. It's about moving beyond our echo chamber, moving beyond our circle, and making the topic relevant for people in their everyday lives, because the pandemic is relevant for people right now. It's occupied their life. It's everywhere, and it's exhausting. It's depressing. It's deadly, and we need to take it from that. So we need to start from, this is where society is right now. These are the things that they think about when they think about the pandemic, and we need to make it about their daily lives. We need to make it about our consumption choices. We need to make it about the solution. We need to make it about making sure something like this does not happen again. The economy was put to a standstill, and this builds a strong case. It gets people to listen. People have lost their jobs. They have lost people close to them. So there is no way that they could ignore the pandemic. We just need to make sure that on the one hand, we are not the only ones who are communicating about it. We need to also, as our colleagues from ProVeg mentioned, look into other speakers, like food industry players, major brands that can say that their future of food, the way that they're going to produce food, is going to be more sustainable, is going to be predominantly plant-based, because we can't afford a different kind of future. We need as many people to say it in their own way. We need economists to say it. We need doctors to say it, virologists, the industry players, even politicians. We need governments to say it. We need to get international institutions like UNEP has already done, and more of them. We need to get maybe the OECD countries, who have played a very big role in creating or helping create the concept of sustainable development. So we have a big job ahead of us, but there's a lot of us, and we really think we can get it done.
That was so powerful. Thank you. I want to give the rest of you, Laura, Lambania, and Linda, the chance for closing comments. So really anything that you want to share as an ending to this session. I'm going to give you the chance. Maybe Lambania, if you want to start, anything you want to add.
Sure, thank you. Well, I just wanted to say that we all need to start raising our voices. We all need to use the talents and all that we can do to start putting this topic on the table. I always say that we maybe not all be earning it, but we have other talents. So let's use it and try to people acknowledge that we need to change our food system.
Thank you. Linda, do you wanna go?
I think Nina and Livania had perfect words for it, and I just wanted to say that if you're interested in working together in this group that we presented, just reach out to us. You find our email addresses and our contacts in the presentation, and we are looking forward to work with you in the upcoming year.
So nice. Everybody can take action right away.
Yeah.
Laura, last statement goes out to you if you want to add anything.
Thank you. Yeah, also I want to say if anyone wants to talk more about this or has ideas for the ProVeg Food and Pandemics report, we're very happy to have a chat or an email conversation about it. One last remark, I think, adding to already all the great stuff that was being said, is I would say, let's be strategic about this, because we're not with a lot of people. We have a limited amount of resources, and it's a huge message to get across. So influencing the influencers seems to be, up until now, the most effective approach, instead of trying to reach every single individual. And that entails thinking, maybe taking some more time, thinking things through better and investing a little more, but also achieving bigger results. Yeah, that was my last addition.
I have goosebumps. I think this is so important. So thank you all, Limba, Laura, Nina, and last one, Laura, sorry. And I want to end with one thing that Anina said earlier, which she said so nicely. We need to talk about what the future should look like as open, often, and loud as possible. So I want to end the session with these words. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.